Yeah, we want to start out with just a couple of questions, and then we definitely want to open it up to everyone else. Yes, please. There's so much going on, given the rate of advancement in technology right now, and all of the different things that people can do in the audio space. Particularly for the small and medium newsrooms, how do they decide where to focus?
I mean, I genuinely believe what I just said in that presentation, which is like, think about what makes you unique, where you can offer something that's really different. I think a lot of people are still really stuck in the idea that podcasts can only be, two people sitting around a microphone in their garage. And yes, there are great podcasts that are that. It's not to say that they're not that. But there's so many other forms of storytelling out there right now, so many more interesting ways to approach it. And so I would say, if you can find that thing that feels really unique to what your newsroom offers and puts it out there in a way that feels distinct.
When it comes to interactive experiences, if you were to recommend something to a smaller or medium-sized newsroom, where would you go?
I would say start small, too. We did a lot of in-house. We have made so many things that we have never put out into the world because we put it in front of people and they were like, that's not good. And you have to do that. That's how you learn. That's how you learn what works. So I would say start small, start experimenting, identify the tiny experiments that you might be able to do. There's no degree that I'm aware of right now for exactly what we're all doing on stage, right? It's all kind of cobbled together through us deciding to do these experiments, right? And so find space, do experiments, make people who work with you listen to whatever you made, get feedback, and start to build a case, right? Then take it to your readers, bother people in a coffee shop. I mean, this is the way that we started and the way that we learned.
It feels like we're also at a moment where we have all these possibilities, we have these products, but we don't necessarily know the best way to measure what success is. Can you talk a little bit, Irene, about how you all measure success with the podcast?
I think most people, sorry, I don't have a mic right now, so I'm just going to talk loud.
No, you need...
Oh.
Yeah, you got it.
Never mind. I thought you were going to throw the orange box at me.
No. Oh, yes, that's cool. Would you prefer?
To catch? No, I'm okay. Thanks. Well, sadly, I think with podcasts, a lot of the ways that you're forced to measure success is through your downloads. So we try to spread it out so that you're not being ruled strictly by the download numbers that pop up on Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or Art19. And we also look at how our listeners are responding to us on Twitter and what they're replying to and so forth. And we try to put a little more weight into listener response as a measure of feedback. Like, people really like our ads, odd enough as that sounds.
Okay.
Our host gets really unique with them, and so the more people respond to us that way, that's how we adapt what we do.
So there has been a lot of debate about using downloads as a measure because it doesn't necessarily mean people listened. Are there other technologies on the way? And I ask that knowing that you kind of mentioned that, Jessica, when you were here at UT not too long ago.
Yeah, I mean, what I said at UT last time, so I'll say it again, is, all of our data is wrong in the same way, at least, right? So we're all comparing the same slightly wrong numbers against each other. So it makes those measurements really fair. People are laughing.
Wrong but fair.
One of our data scientists at the Post, Aram Zuckersharf, you should look at his Twitter account. He has some fantastic rants against how all data is made up. But I do think as long as you're all making it up together, there's some efforts to set better standards around this.
We've all signed on to the IAB. I think we all have version 2 standards, which is the new measurement standard, which counts if you listen to a podcast. Say you start a podcast and then stop and then go back to it again. It used to count as 2 downloads. Now it's 1, which makes sense. So we're all seeing, I'm seeing 30% fewer downloads in our numbers because of that new standard. But it's more accurate. Are you seeing that as well? Are you guys doing that?
We
I'll put you on the spot.
no, we haven't seen a decline like that, but we're using IAB compliant.
Oh, interesting. Wait a second.
So let's go ahead and open it up to questions.
Just a couple
from
of
the
questions
audience.
because we're late.
Yeah,
but,
sorry, we
there's
can't do
one
too
there.
much.
Are you going to catch?
Nice. And that arm on Rosenthal.
Nice
Hi.
catch.
Amazing.
Hello. So I have two questions. So the first question is, a lot of the conversation here is about podcasts. So what is that in between news briefing and podcast space look like in audio? First question. Second question, have you rethink about how your content is being tagged in a way that's voice searchable with the smart devices?
Who wants to take that one? So the first one, what's the medium ground between the briefings and full-on podcasts that you're looking at? I think Steve, maybe you talked about some of those.
I mean, we're doing some briefings. I'll tell you what, we have found that the voice, Alexa, Siri, all that stuff, and Google Home, people are still using it like a kitchen timer for the most part. We use it in my house as a reminder to tell our kids to put their shoes on in the morning, and it's effective. They hate Alexa, by the way. They're just like, God, she's just always on us, but it works. But until the day comes, and I wrote something about this for Slate a couple of years ago. One day, voice recognition technology is going to become so amazing that you're going to be able to speak in normal ways to your device and to your radio in your car or whatever it is, and say, I want this, 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 and this, and I want that podcast from 3 weeks ago where some guy mentioned pretzels, and it will find it and it will play it for you. I think that's in the next 10 years. You're going to have that kind of technology. And so this discovery thing is going to change in a drastic way. And all these voice speakers and voice recognition software is all going to come along, and it's going to be a bigger, better thing, I think. That's my prediction. Do not quote me.
Okay, the last
Another question.
Last question, a short one. You talk about downloads. Which is the role of subscriptions? How important is for you as a measure of success? I know that some platforms don't allow it, but what do you think of that?
By the way, can I just say I hate all the ways we measure podcasting? It's the worst. Subscriptions only seem to matter with Apple Podcasts. The top charts, none of that has to do with numbers of listens or downloads. It's all about activity around your podcast. And so it's a false sense of like pride and security a little bit. It's like, my podcast is number 11. Let me go check the downloads. Oh, 15,000. It's like, oh, this has nothing to do with the other. So we do urge people to subscribe. It does help for discovery on Apple, but I have to say, like, I'm a podcast person. I subscribe to hardly any podcasts. I just like to go through and listen when I want to listen, and that's the way I do it. And so I don't know how important it is in this world of podcasts to have subscriptions. Now, until you can get the information on who that subscriber is, that's when it gets interesting. But this anonymous subscription thing doesn't do me any good.
Yeah, and I'll say, that idea of kind of subscriptions writ a little larger, somebody who subscribes to your company, to your news organization because they listen to your podcast. That's something that we're very, very interested in thinking about, how, the podcast that we put out there builds an audience that we can then bring back to our other platforms. And, as
Your subscribe by email thing is ingenious. Like, it's so obvious, but what a great,
you are all welcome to steal
we
it.
will be stealing.
Steal that idea. Okay.
That's great.
So, thank you very much. This was great. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.